YouTube, what is y'all doing? I'm coming back again with another one, getting into some stuff today, trying to vlog more, trying to get back into the rhythm. But I got some stuff I want to talk to y'all about today. So basically, what I want to talk to y'all about today is older Lexus and should you get one. It's gonna be primarily directed at this car because for those of you who don't know, right now I'm currently riding in my 2000 Lexus GS400, and you know, these cars are getting harder and harder to find, and like I just want to talk about, should you buy one or should you own one, however you want to look at it. So how I want to start this video out is probably by giving y'all a little history lesson on the Lexus, primarily focusing on this car again, the 1998 to 2005 Lexus GS series. But I'm focusing on this platform and talking about should you own one of these, and we're gonna get into that in this video. I just messed up. I should have had the camera recording. I stopped it because I was coming through the Chick-fil-A line. And it would have been perfect for this video because this kid that's working up here at Chick-fil-A just was like, hey man, I see your car sometimes, you know, in my neighborhood. I think we live in the same neighborhood. And he was like, you know, I really like the way they look. It's inspiration for me. I don't know why, but that made me feel good because it's like, I don't know, I struggle with this YouTube stuff and like trying to be an inspiration to people. I don't know why that is, but I guess I just be dealing with like my own struggles and stuff like that in life and not really thinking about, like, you know, you probably are still inspiring people. I don't know, it just made me feel good. I wanted to share that with y'all. That's not the point of today's video, but I thought it was a good segue into owning one of these older cars. Alright YouTube, what's good? Finally made it back home. I originally set out to wash this car, didn't get a chance. The car wash place was just too overcrowded, and I came back home. I just really don't feel like screwing around with the pressure washer and whatnot. So we're gonna do this video with a dirty car, but I think y'all gonna understand where I'm coming from. So the car is indeed filthy. I don't know how well the camera picks that up, and I hope that y'all can hear me pretty well. I know that they're over there racing. I live near a racetrack, so you probably hear a lot of motors in the background. Hopefully not. Hope the audio is great. But here it is, my 2000 Lexus GS400. This car's been on the channel for a while. Go check out some of my later videos if you want some more information on it. But today we're talking about owning an older Lexus. So I hope y'all can see me well. I decided I'm just gonna pull up a seat and talk to y'all about it. So anytime you're looking at owning an older car, you're potentially looking at buying something with issues. Like I said, they made this model of this car from 98 to 2005, and the GS400, which is the one I have, was only made from 98 to 2000. So these are even harder to find than like the GS430s or the GS300s. But you can't really go wrong with either of those platforms. They're all good. They're all pretty reliable, pretty stout cars. As for the V8s, they're pretty good engines. They're great engines. A lot of people have described them as bulletproof. But one of the things to take in consideration if you're looking at buying one of these cars is the timing belt. Now, a lot of people buy these cars, and yes, they'll go for miles and miles on an old timing belt, but as soon as that belt breaks, it's game over. The motor's gone. So if you're looking at one of these cars, check that timing belt out. For me, owning mine, I replaced the timing belt myself. Y'all saw that in the video. On the V8s, it's a little bit tougher than it is on the GS300, but it's something that you could definitely do. I would not purchase one of these cars unless I have some type of mechanical knowledge. Not saying that you're gonna really need it as much, but you do want to kind of be mechanical savvy owning an older vehicle in general. That's not just Lexus, that's any older car. So under the hood, we have a 4-liter naturally aspirated V8 engine from Lexus. This is the 1UZ FE. And back in the day, these cars were known to be some of the fastest sedans, or if not the fastest sedan that you could purchase. To put that in perspective, this car came out again in 1998. At that time, the Mustang was making like 230 horsepower, maybe 225, something like that. And I think Dodge, you had to go get a Intrepid or something like that. This car came out making about 300 horsepower, 315 pound-feet of torque. With that being said, I'm gonna tell y'all the good with the bad. One of the bad things I talked about earlier was a timing belt, which is located back in there. It's not fun to do. But also, the starter. In order to replace the starter on this car, it was the worst design you could think of. You have to take out the complete intake manifold to access it and remove it. And while you're in there, it's kind of like one of those things where you might as well go in and start replacing knock sensors, because those can go out too. So you can keep these cars running for a long period of time, but you have to kind of know what you're doing in order to maintain them. They don't require a lot of work. Like some of this stuff you probably only change once in a lifetime, if ever, but it's something that you want to be handy and know how to do. As I said earlier, I'm gonna state the good with the bad. So one of the things that I've always noticed about these early GS cars is suspension problems. Now if you go back and look at one of my older videos, back when I had a Gs400, I ended up replacing, I don't even think I put this on video, but I ended up replacing the whole power steering rack. That job sucked, but it's definitely doable. There's nothing too quickly that you're gonna encounter in these cars that you cannot do at home with your own tools. It just might be more of a pain. Like, you're not having to take this to a mechanic. If you kind of know what you're doing, you can get a long way with these vehicles. And parts aren't expensive. But suspension issues seem to always plague these GS's. The major one being lower ball joints. If you buy one of these, please replace the lower ball joints. It's very crucial to the maintenance of this car, because your lower ball joint breaks and your wheel is basically has a mind of its own. Like, you won't, it can be very unsafe. So if you're looking at buying one of these GS's, please do your research and make sure those ball joints have been replaced. And if not, just go ahead and do them yourself. Usually they'll show signs of wear, like you might hear creaking and stuff like that. But with these cars, that's not a good test of faith, because the suspension just creaks a lot on older vehicles in general. Bushings get old and things like that. So keep that in mind. I'm now moving on to the interior because it's so loud outside. And hey, let's talk about the interior. So my GS has the black interior. I think these came in like 3 or 4 different interior colors. I think they had tan. Black was one of them. I think you could get gray, and there's a really rare called saddle leather. It's like a more of a brownish orange type leather. Super rare. If I ever find it, I'm taking it, because it just looks great in this car, but it's super hard to find. But most people are gonna want to go for the black. The gray is harder to find too, and it's, you know, it didn't hold up well. The tan is the most prevalent, and the tan didn't hold up well either. You're lucky if you find the saddle leather. But so the black is really the golden child. So when I bought this car, I specifically went looking for a black interior, because I just wanted black interior. It looks better, it's easier to keep clean. So going around to my center stack, you can see that I have a tablet installed here. It's not really installed, I can take it out and whatnot, but I deleted my center vents because I wanted something more modern here. This older radio, it sounds great. I have the Nakamichi sound system, and it works so well. I just didn't want to delete this thing or get rid of it. So I just kind of like Frankenstein some type of like tablet setup here, where this thing is Bluetooth to my radio via the tape player. If you want more information on that, I can make a separate video on how I did that. But anyway, this is my center control stack. A lot of times in these cars, you'll see where this display will just like stop showing numbers or whatever. Mine hasn't done that. I'm kind of thinking that it has been replaced at some point, but I'm honestly not sure. But that's something that you want to keep in mind too. Just dealing with older vehicles, you run into like stuff like that. Keep in mind, this was 1998, and you just insert the key and the steering wheel just comes to you. I've always loved the 3-pod gauge display that you see on this car. It just always looked great to me. I just like how they put this together. it's quality aesthetically. You got these buttons on the steering wheel that you can control your shifts. If you shift the car in a sport mode, they were really, at the time, Lexus was really forward thinking with this car. I think that's why it's a huge following behind this car. You can probably pick one of these cars up, I'm gonna say a reasonable range for something that's decent, probably like 4 to 6K, depending on how good it was maintained. Maybe even 3,500 to 6K. Anything below that, you probably get into some weird territory where it might not be what you think it is. But I don't know, there are some good deals out here, especially with it seeming like the car market is starting to come back around. So another thing I want to pinpoint too, door lock actuators. As you can see on mine, I can lock the doors and unlock the doors. At some point, like, this fails where it's an actuator inside of the door that you can you gotta take the door panel off and replace because it won't lock anymore. The parts, again, are not expensive, but it's not really fun to replace, but it's definitely something that, again, you can do at home. Next, I want to talk about my experience with this car and like just day-to-day use. So I have this car and I also have a 2006 Lexus IS350. This car definitely gets driven more, and I don't even know why that is. I like the way I like driving this car. I don't know, I guess that's just in a nutshell. I've never been stranded in this car. Again, go back, look at the video when I got it. I went all the way to me and my wife actually drove all the way to Ohio, and I bought this car and drove it back with 0 issues. And it's never failed me. Like, I've been driving this car. I've driven it to Atlanta. I've driven it to Gatlinburg. This car has never failed me, and it's just been reliable. And I feel like, you know, I've done things to make it more reliable, like replace the timing belt, ball joints, but I honestly feel like this car would still be going if I hadn't done that. Like, these cars just have so much life. To be a 22-year-old car, it's just impressive, the build quality and everything that Lexus used in these vehicles. Now, day-to-day use, I'm not gonna lie to y'all and tell y'all by today's standards, it's still a really fast car. I'll say it's faster than normal traffic, like regular traffic, you know, most of it anyway. And the V8 sounds good, but you know, 300 horsepower, now you got, you know, Kias or whatnot starting to creep into that range, so it's like not as fast as it used to be, but it's still plenty fast, especially the bang for the buck. Like, you can get this car and, like, you know, take it anywhere, and most people know that, and that's why if you have one that's in good condition, it's gonna probably command a higher value because it's harder to find. And that brings me to my next point. Something else that I love about this car is exclusivity. Now, I know I'm not the only one with a Lexus GS, and there's a lot of people out here that still have them on the road, but they aren't as common as, like, and I hate to throw Dodge people on the bus because I love y'all my folks, but it's just so many Dodge, like, Charger and Challenger enthusiasts and stuff like that, that tends to, like, overwhelm the car community. Like, it's not a lot of exclusivity. Everybody's got a Charger or something like that. So you pull up with something like this and it's like different. Like, I don't know, like, what happened to, like, the car community. Well, it seems like everybody's doing the same thing now, and it's, to me, that's a little weird. It's like, okay, can somebody do something else? Now, I understand, like, there's only so many cars in the world, so, like, it's gonna be some redundancy, but it seems like everybody just goes and gets the same cars, and you pull up to the meet and somebody's doing donuts in a Charger or something, you know, and it's, I'll just stay at home type. But I don't know, like, I've always been attracted to the JDM vehicles. Going off on the tangent, overall, this car has been super reliable for me. I feel comfortable taking it anywhere. These cars are really made for the highway, I feel like. That's where you're gonna see your best gas mileage, and also, to me, I see the best performance out of the car on the highway. This thing loves to cruise, eat up miles. It's like the faster you go, the faster the car wants to go. Going around the city, I'm gonna put it this way: if I have to do some city driving and I gotta choose between this and my IS, I'm taking the IS every day. If I have to do a lot of highway miles and highway driving, I'm probably gonna jump in this car every day. It's a bigger car for one thing, but I just love the way the V8 rides on the highway. So, to answer the questions, probably the title of this video, should you own a second generation Lexus GS or Lexus GS, or in general, should you own one of these cars? And I'm gonna have to go with yes. I know I said a lot of things that might have scared a lot of you people, but being aware of something and something actually happening is two different things. Like, most of the things that I've said are concerns, but they don't usually happen to people. All right, so yes, you're gonna have to replace a starter at some point. It's not the end of the world. Door lock actuators, you can buy those off eBay for like 40 bucks or something like that. It's not the end of the world. Like, none of the issues you're usually gonna encounter on these cars is the end of the world. Now, the timing belt being the biggest thing, it's also like probably one of the more expensive things you would pay for this car. But let's say you go get one and you pay $3,500 for it, and I don't know, like, you take it somewhere, you probably, honestly, you can get this timing belt changed by somebody with experience. They'll probably do it for less than $1,000. So let's say $800. Get this car for $3,500, $800 timing belt replacement, $4,300 into a car that will take you pretty much wherever you want to go. Like, people have been known to put like there's a million-mile Lexus out there, and you can look at that on YouTube. I'm not here to promote anybody else's content, but it's interesting to see how quality Lexus builds their vehicle. Another thing that I want to touch on is aftermarket support. For those of you who don't know what aftermarket support is, it's basically vendors outside of like Lexus that builds parts for these cars. And there's a ton of aftermarket support for the second generation Lexus GS. It's just a ton of it. Bumpers, performance mods, you name it. Like, you got people strapping Ford superchargers to these engines, and, you know, turbos or whatever. So that's also something you want to look at when you're buying a car. Like, how many people are actually behind this car? Like, if usually if you see no aftermarket support for a car, it's probably something you want to stay away from. Not all the time, but usually. Like, for instance, like, I don't know, I even see Camrys with a lot of aftermarket support, so I don't even know if I can say like you can't use the Camry as an excuse, because I still see like headlights, tail lights, you know, alternatives to paying like OEM prices for stuff and still get quality parts is what I'm talking about when I say aftermarket. So I think that's something else to consider. This is definitely a car you would get and pay cash for, so, you know, if you're talking about paying cash for a vehicle under $6K, I think these cars don't get enough love. Simply because, I don't know, like, people don't, it's kind of like the forgotten child. I think people kind of forget about Lexus in terms of being like somewhat performance and like reliable, and still like being a car that like you can modify, make look cool, being a cool car. I guess that's what I'm saying. Anyway, guys, that's probably gonna conclude this video. It was never meant to be a long video. I appreciate y'all for watching and subscribing, and whatever y'all do, just keep doing you. Peace. Whatever you do, keep doing you.